Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. As you guys can tell, I'm not in my usual setup. I thought it was a good idea to read your spooky stories at a haunted hotel. Now, which haunted hotel, you may ask? At the Copper Queen Hotel, located in Bisbee, Arizona. Said to be haunted by a little boy named Billy and a lady named Julia. So we'll see. We'll see if anything happens. Let me know in the comments. But of course, guys, you guys already know. Grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hey Daisy, my name is Amber. My story takes place in Boston, Massachusetts on the USS Constitution. A little backstory. I was in the US Navy at the time, and in 2023, I got stationed on the USS Constitution, which is a ceremonial duty station. Only about 1% of the Navy gets stationed there, and our crew size was about 60-70 people. We all knew each other really well. This ship is 227 years old and is the original ship from 1797. It was part of many battles and wars, the most famous being the War of 1812. All the crew members who died on the ship are remembered in the museum across the street. You can imagine how many scary stories we sailors have from being on that ship. My first story happened when I first arrived at the command. I had to stand the overnight watch from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. Yes, 3 a.m. Of course, when all the spooky stuff happens. We assumed the watch 30 minutes early, so technically 2:30 a.m. It was my very first overnight watch. I had already heard stories from other sailors and was spooked just walking onto the ship. I put in one AirPod and played music to try and distract myself while I rowed the ship. I walked up the bow and immediately felt uneasy. I figured it was just because I was new and terrified. There are 8 ladder wells that go down to the bottom of the ship, and there are 4 decks total. We had to check the bilge pump every hour to make sure the ship wasn't taking on water. And of course, it was on the lowest deck. As I placed one foot on the ladder to go down to the second deck, I felt something push my foot, and I fell down the ladder well. I grabbed onto the ropes on the side to catch myself, but I had a ring on my finger. The friction from the rope almost degloved my finger. I sat there at the bottom of the ladder, rethinking all my life choices and why I joined the Navy. LOL. I heard creaks here and there, so I quickly stood up, checked the pump, and sprinted back to the entry control point where the other watchstander was. I told them what happened, showed them my finger, and of course, they went on to share a scary encounter they had experienced. I just sat there thinking, it's not like I have to go back down there in an hour. My next story was the craziest one I've ever experienced, and it involved 2 other people, one of them being my husband. This happened in late 2024, around November. My husband was on midday watch from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. He was sweeping the top deck, called the spar deck, where all the masts and sails are. Around 8 p.m., he was finishing up so he could be relieved. As he made his way to the back part of the ship to sweep, he felt goosebumps trail down his back. He looked around, and what he saw still haunts him to this day. On the spanker boom, which is one of the yard arms that holds a sail, he saw a dark, misty figure just standing there with red, glowing eyes staring directly at him. He tried to brush it off, telling himself, I'm just seeing things. He went down to the second deck, into the captain's cabin, and started sweeping again. Suddenly, the same feeling of goosebumps ran down his back. When he looked up, there it was, the same dark, misty figure standing in the corner, just watching him. He immediately dropped the broom and ran back to the entry control point, where the other sailor was standing watch. He was so shaken, he didn't speak for the rest of his shift. About 30 minutes later, he was relieved by one of our friends and went up to the game lounge where I was waiting for him. He told me what happened, and I could see the fear in his eyes. We sat on the couch watching YouTube, trying to distract ourselves. Around 1 a.m., we got a message from our friend that said, "I think I just saw something in the captain's cabin." It was dark. My husband went pale as a ghost. His heart dropped. He hadn't told anyone except me about what he saw. The next morning, I was scheduled to be on the ship before 10 a.m. I arrived around 9:50 and went down to the second deck, where the captain's cabin was. I was just walking around, waiting for the ship to open to guests at 10. As I was walking, I heard a noise coming from the captain's cabin. My back was facing the door. I froze in my tracks. Slowly, I turned my head without moving my body, and chills ran down my spine. I didn't see anything, so I tried to shake it off. Not even a minute later, one door to the captain's cabin slammed shut. Then the door on the other side slammed shut, while the first one swung open again. I couldn't leave the ship because it was my post, so I went all the way to the front of the ship and tried to calm myself down. Soon after, guests began boarding, and it was like nothing had ever happened. I went back to the captain's cabin, opened the door, and looked around to make sure no one was in there. And of course, no one was. Everyone has experienced hearing footsteps and running on the upper decks while being down below. Things still happen here and there, and we like to spook the new sailors who arrive as a tradition. Some laugh and don't believe us, but I'm sure one day they'll experience the things we did. Hi Daisy, I have a paranormal story for you. I'm from Germany, and back then, I was in a long-distance relationship. My ex used to visit me, and we would stay at hotels. Once, we stayed at a very old hotel in the city center. He mentioned that the building was still from the World War era. I jokingly said that it was probably haunted, which turned out to be true. That night, I had to go home because I lived in a foster facility, so he spent the night alone. That's when he said weird things happened. He claimed that his blanket was pulled. He heard knocking, and the lights went out. Later, he told me that the spirit followed him. He said he saw a shadow figure and heard evil-sounding laughs. It is important to mention that he is a pathological and compulsive liar, so his side of the story might not be true. But then, things started happening to me. When I went back to the foster facility, I was sitting on my bed when something suddenly fell off my desk. I didn't think much of it. A few minutes later, though, a plastic bag started shaking and making very unnatural noises, like someone was playing with it. The doors and windows were closed, and the bag had been sitting there for a couple of days without moving at all. I wasn't really scared or feeling threatened, just confused. So I decided to go to sleep, even though I found it very strange. I laid on my side, which left a lot of space on my pillow exposed. That's when I felt a hand pushing my pillow down. I felt very uneasy, but somehow I was still able to fall asleep. Looking back, I don't think the ghost wanted to harm me, but rather show its presence. When I think about it now, I honestly wonder how I managed to stay so calm. Hi Daisy, I'd like to stay anonymous. I want to start off by saying that I grew up in a Christian household, so I never believed in ghosts or anything paranormal. This story I'm about to share has stuck with me because, like I said, I never believed in that kind of stuff. And this was my first ever encounter with a ghost. I was at my friend's house one night. For context, she lived in a house where both a father and his son had passed away. I'm not exactly sure how, but either way, there was a tragic history there. That night, we were getting ready to watch a movie in her big sister's room. Before the movie started, I wanted to grab my snacks from my friend's room. As I walked in, I saw a little boy sitting at the end of her bed. His back was facing me, so I couldn't see his face, but I vividly remember he was wearing a red shirt. The way he was sitting reminded me of a kid who's in trouble, quiet, still, and almost sad. At first, I didn't want to overthink it or scare myself, so I went to check the living room where all of her brothers were sleeping. They were all there, and none of them had a shirt on, so there was no way it could have been one of them. My heart started racing. I hurried back toward her sister's room, and as I got there, her big brother was walking out. He immediately noticed my face and asked, "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" Shaking, I blurted out, "I just saw a little boy in your sister's room." I expected him not to believe me, but to my surprise, he calmly said, "Oh, the little boy? Yeah, we all seen him. Don't be scared. He's harmless." When I tell you I called my mom so fast to come pick me up, I was out of there. Till this day, I still can't believe what I saw. I never thought I'd have a paranormal story of my own to tell, but here I am. Hello Daisy, my name is Sergio, and I'm from a border town in Texas. I wanted to share a story that happened to me when I was around 10 or 11 years old. My family and I lived in a really old 4-bedroom house. At that age, my sister and I loved to scare each other. We would hide in different places, jump out, and yell to startle one another. At one point, my sister started hiding and whispering my name. Especially at night, she'd call my name softly, and as I got closer, she'd jump out and scare me. One night, I woke up around 3 a.m. after hearing a whisper calling my name. Thinking it was my sister playing one of her usual tricks, I got out of bed and walked toward the living room, where I thought the whisper was coming from. As I got closer, I said in a low voice, "Come on, sister, it's late. Go to sleep." But there was no response. I walked all the way into the living room, and no one was there. What I did see sent chills down my spine. The front door was wide open, and the screen door was unlocked, gently slamming against the wall from the wind. The night was silent and still. I froze, completely freaked out, because I could have sworn I heard the whisper calling my name. I immediately slammed the door shut, ran back to my bed, covered myself completely with my blanket, and squeezed my eyes shut. I told myself, once I fall asleep, I won't have to think about this. After that night, nothing like that ever happened again, but every now and then, I think back to it and wonder what could have been calling my name. Hi amiga, I finally worked up the courage to share one of my own spooky encounters. I've always felt a strong connection to the supernatural, but not in a typical way. A connection shows up mostly through dreams. They're so vivid that sometimes they deeply affect my mental health. For example, I knew how my father was going to pass a year before it happened. I knew my sister was pregnant before she even took a test. And I also knew the baby wasn't going to make it. These kinds of things happen often for me, but this story is about something different. It's about a little girl who lives in our house. Our home was built in the early 1970s, and the first time I encountered this little girl, I was 12 years old. My sister and I were both up late one night, hungry and thirsty around midnight. In our house, when the kitchen was dark, it meant it was closed for the night. But we decided to sneak downstairs anyway. We quietly passed my parents' room and crept down the creaky stairs. Once we were in the kitchen, we had our backs to the dining room, busy making ourselves a snack, thinking we'd gotten away with it. Suddenly, our dad jumped out from behind us, scaring us from the dining room side. We turned around, startled, and that's when we saw her. A little girl with pitch black hair, wearing a white gown, ran across the dark dining room behind our dad. Our dad laughed and said, "Looks like I scared y'all into thinking I was a ghost." My sister and I didn't say a word. We just looked at each other and ran upstairs. That whole week, we slept in the same bed. Fast forward 12 years later, my sister now lives across the country in North Carolina, while I still live in our childhood home with our mom. Over the years, we've experienced unexplainable things, objects moving, weird noises, but nothing ever felt threatening. We'd usually just laugh it off and say it was our dad sending us love. He passed away in 2021. But then something happened. My sister came to visit, and after a day of shopping, we got home and started putting things away. I went upstairs to my room to unpack, and she stayed downstairs. A few minutes later, I heard her calling my name. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. I finally called back to the third. As I walked down the stairs, I saw her sprinting toward the front door. I immediately followed. She was pale and visibly shaken. She said, "I just saw you. You were downstairs. I was calling you and saw you ran past the hallway, so I started chasing after you. But then I heard your voice upstairs, and I knew it wasn't you." Our mom had stayed in the car, still on the phone with my aunt, and as soon as we got outside, we yelled at her to start the car. We didn't come back into the house until my sister's husband and my brother were home. To this day, we still don't know who or what my sister saw, but I believe the little girl in white never left. Hi Daisy. I wanted to share with you, with my mom's permission, this scary story about her experience with an Ouija board as a child. My mom was born and raised in Tamaulipas, Mexico. When my mom was around the age of 13, she was given an Ouija board by one of her childhood friends, who claimed she simply didn't want the board in her possession anymore. My mom, being the curious individual she was, told one of her cousins, which led them to play with it often. My mom's obsession with the board eventually grew stronger, to the point where she broke one big rule: never play with the board alone. She stopped waiting for her cousin and began playing by herself. That's when she started noticing many scary things happening around her house. My mom would hear things that only she could hear. For instance, she would hear her name being called while she slept, or hear her closet door slam shut. But when she asked her mom if she had heard it too, her mom would say, "What are you talking about? I didn't hear anything." My mom also became a sleepwalker after playing with the board, even though she had never been one before. My grandmother would wake up in the middle of the night to find my mom walking in the middle of the street, mumbling to herself. The events became so terrifying that my mom eventually decided she no longer wanted the Ouija board in the house. One day, she decided enough was enough and that she was going to burn it. She lit the board on fire and swore she watched it turn completely to ashes, with nothing remaining. The next day, My grandmother wanted to change the living room curtains and asked my mom to grab some curtains from her closet. When my mom went to go get them, she was horrified to find the Ouija board sitting on top of the curtains, fully intact. She couldn't believe it. The same board she had watched burn the day before was sitting right in front of her, without a single burn mark. Terrified, she felt like she couldn't tell her mom because she knew she probably wouldn't believe her. Instead, she immediately called her friend, the one who had given her the board, and told her everything that had been happening and how she couldn't get rid of it. That's when her friend told her, the only way you're going to be able to get rid of it is if you gift it to someone else. My mom instantly realized that her friend had probably given her the board for that very same reason, to get rid of it. Eventually, my mom was finally able to get the board off of her hands when a woman bought it from her. Yet, to this day, my mom swears she feels something still follows her. Because even in our own house now, we continue to experience paranormal occurrences. Hi Daisy, my name is Diana, and this story has to do with where I currently work. I work in an old military base that has schools ranging from elementary to high school, a total of 5 schools. 5 years ago, I used to work at the middle school. This building is separated into 3 parts. The downstairs is the elementary school, the middle floor is the middle school, and the top floor is the high school. This happened while I was working at the middle school during the fall/Halloween dance. I was asked to chaperone the dance, which ran from 5 to 7:30 p.m. After the event ended, all the kids had been picked up, and my coworker and I sent the last volunteer chaperones home since all that was left to do was put the tables away in the hallway for the janitor. The only hallway light that was on was in the 7th grade commons. The 8th grade commons doors were locked and completely dark, as were the 6th grade commons. The janitor told us to leave just the tables and chairs stacked against the wall and that he would pick them up Monday morning. He then headed upstairs to the high school to get the mop to clean, leaving just me and my coworker downstairs. We were stacking the last 4 chairs when we suddenly heard 2 doors opening by the 8th grade commons. At first, we thought the janitor might have stayed behind, so we didn't think much of it. A few moments later, we heard beeping, like the sound of a hospital machine, and footsteps walking down the hallway. That's when my coworker and I quickly realized that was not the janitor, and we took off running outside. We ran into the janitor outside and frantically told him everything we had heard. He looked at us and said, "Didn't you guys know? This school building used to be a hospital." Ever since then, whenever I work there, I've experienced strange things, and I have more stories I can share. But this one made my skin crawl, because I'll never forget how close that beeping sounded, like it was right next to us. So that was it for today's video. These stories were definitely more spooky than usual, especially being in a haunted hotel. I will be sleeping the night, so wish me luck. I will update you guys if anything happens, and if nothing happens, then there's no updates. So I guess stay tuned. We'll see. But other than that, have a safe Halloween, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Okay, so that was it for our stay. We only did an overnight, but we couldn't sleep well. I think we were just spooked out. I mean, I just finished reading our guys' stories. I was just scared over that. But I did hear spooky knocks on the window. I don't know if they were, it could be the wind. I mean, this hotel is really old, so creaks, knocks, I'm sure is very normal. I'll leave that up to you guys. I should have recorded those knocks. It happened more than 3 times, but I didn't want to get out of bed because my phone was charging I just rather stayed in my bed, safe and sound. So my bad, guys. Sorry. I know, terrible paranormal content creator. But anyways, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna see if a lady will tell us some spooky stories on this hotel if she's ever encountered anything. So that will be this next clip. Okay, I was not able to get that clip for you guys. I am so sorry, but my sister ran into the cleaning lady outside of our hotel room, and the cleaning lady randomly, guys, asked her, "Oyes, les dejaron dormir?" Translation, did the ghost let you sleep? Now, she did not know we were filming a spooky video. She did not know nothing. So when she asked that to my sister, it just got a little bit more real. Now, she also mentioned that in Billy's room, the one that is said to be haunted by a little boy named Billy, that's where the vibes are all off. Like, that room feels tense. So when she said this, when my sister relayed the message, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to talk to her. But we weren't able to find her. And honestly, she was working, so I didn't want to disturb her. But I just know she has countless paranormal stories just from working there. But that was pretty much it for our stay. Nothing super crazy. Just those knocks that we heard in the middle of the night. I want to say it was 3 in the morning because that's around the time that I finished reading your guys' spooky stories. So I want to say that's the approximate time. But it was really creepy and it made us lose sleep. I think we only slept 2 hours at the most. But yeah, I'll leave that up to you guys to decide whether it was paranormal or not. But other than that, guys, that was all. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and I hope to see you guys all in my next one. Bye!